Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Soul Diving Sunday show featuring transformational life coach Shelley Whizin and your hosts Lisa and Nancy. Welcome everyone. It is the first Sunday of the month of March, and of course that means Shelley Whizin is here and she's going to talk to us about the art of listening. And, you know, my mom, Nancy, is sitting right here too, and she's laughing.
Yes.
She wants me to really take this seriously because it is important. Listening is important in communication, and March happens to be Listening Awareness Month. And Shelley was like, yes, let's talk about listening. So welcome back, Shelley. How are you?
Thank you. I'm well. I'm getting better and better every day, which is really, I'm so thankful for that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's good. Health is always important, right? And
Yes, yes,
it's listening, this is a big deal because I think it does actually include our health, right? Don't we have to listen to ourselves?
yes.
Mhm.
The most important person or voice that we actually hear is the voice within us. And where does that voice come from? So we can discern what voice is speaking to us and which voice are we going to listen to. If we listen to a critical voice, we're not going to feel very good about ourselves. But if we listen to our soul voice, the voice that speaks for the highest and greatest good and speaks from love and comes from the heart, then we're going to feel a lot better than we do if we listen to that critical voice, which is kind of a combination of many voices that have entered our consciousness over the years from childhood on. So it's important to listen to ourselves, but also to discern which voice are we listening to.
Mm. And doesn't the inner voice also tell us if there's something wrong? Like, you know what I mean? That sometimes we're not feeling quite with it. It could be emotional, it could be physical.
Mhm.
And sometimes just to actually take time out and say, okay, body, body and soul, what's going on? And take time to actually just see what crops up from there.
Absolutely. I mean, our body gives us messages, our heart gives us messages, our soul gives us messages, our mind gives us messages. And when they work in coherence with each other, the heart and the mind and the brain, when they're working together, the voice sounds very different. And, you know, there's a lot of noise in the world. Everything's loud. Everything is loud. Everything is the energy static sound all the time. And so there's all that external chatter that we hear and in social media and news and you know, so many distractions. No, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me. No, you got to listen to this. Oh, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, you know. But what about our own wisdom? There is inner wisdom that guides us when we
Mm.
actually listen to it. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. Yeah.
And you have a great article in everyone. It is linked in the episode notes, no matter where you're listening to this from. And it's up on blendradioandtv.com. You can just type in the art of listening and it'll come up. And so the first, you say really there's two main steps. One is listening to yourself, and then you go into the power of active listening, and that's with people or ourselves, right? So it
Absolutely.
is the power of it and how to do it. I mean, how do we shut everything off that, you know, how, do we just stop, like turn your phone off if you're going to really listen to yourself or to somebody else?
That's a good idea. I mean, how often do we do that? How often do we actually turn off our phone and not let the phone dictate? I happen to turn off my sound on my phone because
Mm,
I don't like the sound of texts beep, beep, beep all the
yeah.
time, you know, or the sound when I see the phone is near me. If I see that someone's calling, I'll pick it up. But there's something about hearing the sound of the text beeps that disturb my sense of peace. So we can control those outer sounds for sure. and
Mm,
we control who we listen to from the outside in.
mm,
And we can control what we listen to. I mean, who says we have to listen to the news every day? I mean, exactly what happens if we don't listen to the news one day? Is anything going to change? No. But what will change is the way we feel inside. And so if we want to breed a sense of peace inside of us, then we want to be able to expose ourselves to listening to music that soothes the soul, music that soothes the heart, and one of the quickest ways of being present is breathing.
mm.
Breathing is
Cool. Yeah.
one quick way of getting ourselves present. And, being a death midwife and sitting with people in their last moments of life has taught me so much about listening, because now is not the time to teach someone anything. And as teachers, healers, coaches, all of us who have a tendency of wanting to share information that we learn, share the wisdom that we learn, at the end of someone's life is not the time, because it's the
Mm,
time to listen to the person so they feel that their lives matter. They feel valued. They feel important. They get to share their deepest thoughts, even their regrets and their
mm,
joys, and maybe some of their stories that they haven't, or they feel like sharing in that moment. And
mm-hmm.
I, when I teach, I'm also an end of life trainer. So when I teach caregivers how to sit with people who are dying, we go through an active listening exercise that is very helpful. So we don't ask closed-ended questions. We ask open-ended questions. Like, here's an example. Where were you born? I'm
Mm.
asking, where were you born?
Where was I born? Sylmar,
Okay.
California.
Okay. One answer. So that's one answer. If I ask you, how was your childhood growing up? Where did you grow?
Wow.
Where in your wherever you were born, what was it like growing up in that area?
I don't remember because I
Ah,
left when I was a year and a half and went and lived in the bush in Kenya.
okay. Well, there you go. But you see how interesting that was? Look where it led you. It
Yeah,
led me to a juicy story about your life, not just you were born in Sylmar.
I do remember a little bit, a teeny,
Uh-huh.
teeny, weeny bit of, because Nancy, see, now you look what you've done.
Right.
Nancy, rehabilitated wildlife in the house
Mm,
and, in the garden, and that included lions and tigers. And I'm not kidding.
mm,
So I was raised with goats, lions, tigers, not all at the same time, deer at one point.
mm.
Um, and, you know, and that led to the divorce because some people don't understand why we can't have lions and tigers in the backyard. But this was not, a pet thing at all. We
Uh-huh.
don't believe in that, but no, that's kind of how she ended up in Africa too.
Yeah.
Um, all of it. So I have very, very like blurry memories of that part and blurry memories of sunshine and a
Hmm.
swimming pool somewhere. That's all I know. I don't know
Hmm.
where the swimming pool was, but there was a swimming pool somewhere. Oh, in
Hmm.
the backyard, Nancy's behind me. In the backyard, there was a swimming pool with floating tigers. No, I'm kidding. But
Hmm.
but yeah, I mean, I think that's funny because even when you go to think, you blurt out what's the first thing, and it's like I didn't take the time to really try and conjure up that memory, right? So
Right.
that's interesting too,
So then
how we
what
do that.
what happens in that kind of listening? So that's called open-ended questions. And look where it led us to a juicy story, to a juicy story of all these different segments that came into your mind, just asking what was it like growing up in Sylmar, or what was it
Mm,
like growing up where you were born? And so it's a gift. You gave me a gift of a story about you that enriched me because it was so interesting.
and it enriches me because it makes me feel happy to look backwards.
Yes, yes, yes. And did it make you feel valued? Like I'm
Hmm.
interested in you.
Sure. Instead of, when you have a conversation and someone's looking at their phone, I'm serious. Like I have a rant on that. Like it just gets to a point, and I know I'm guilty of it. I do it. Like Nancy's trying to tell me something, but wait, I read this here. That's
Right,
rude. And then she feels like, hey, this is actually important. I'm trying to tell you something. Someone's
right,
trying to take money out of our bank account that shouldn't, but I'm going, look at the phone. You know,
right,
who
right, right.
wins? And
Mm-hmm,
so, in a partnership,
mm-hmm.
neither one of us are winning at this point, and that's not a good thing. So I think we all have those moments, and it's something to be aware of because I think we've gotten worse about listening, and listening used to be the everything. If you
Mm-hmm,
think back into ancient times, stories were passed
mm-hmm,
down orally, history was passed down orally.
mm-hmm.
Um, Language was created for a reason. Music is part of listening, which makes us feel good. That's a universal language. So listening is everything.
Everything. Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting because even if someone is deaf,
Hmm.
they can still pay attention and do the act of listening by
Hmm.
watching somebody share their story or share their wisdom or share whatever it is that they want to share. And you're receiving it when it's like a gift. You give me a gift when you share something about yourself. That's a gift to me. And I love receiving it because I'm genuinely interested in what you have to say.
Hmm.
And
And
yeah, go ahead.
go ahead. Now, I was just going to say, because you talk about how to let people know that you're being genuinely interested so that they actually know that it's like I'm really listening. Like you without,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you you do it through body language, right? And even like on shows right now, we're audio only because Nancy and I are stuck in a little hotel room.
Mm-hmm.
No one
Right.
needs to see that. But so to me I go, uh-huh, so let you know I'm listening.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Exactly.
don't have the visuals to with my body language because body language is everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the body language. But I feel like even when you are talking to someone, if they can't see you and you're smiling at them, see, even
Mm-hmm.
as soon as I started saying the word smile, my voice changes up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense about even
Yeah,
that kind of communication?
for sure. For sure. And when you're with someone, I mean, most of the time, like if someone is dying, usually they're pretty unconscious.
Mm,
So they can listen because hearing is the last sense to go. I find that fascinating, that hearing when we go
mm,
is the last sense to go. And so even if they can't respond, they can hear and they can listen to the things that we share with them, telling
mm,
them how important they are, telling them how valuable they are, telling them how much we'll miss them, telling them how much their lives mattered and thanking them for being who they were and
mm,
sharing with us who they were while they were alive and
mm.
while they were able to speak and share and all of that good stuff. So you could be silent and listen. Doesn't mean you have to talk or, like you said, if you're aware, you can have body language and nod your head up and down. I mean, I'm very verbal, so I always go, with my head nodding
Mhm.
up and down, and it's really I really want you to know that I care enough about you that I'm really listening to you, and my mind isn't somewhere else preoccupied with what I need to do for lunch.
What are we doing for lunch? You know, so the other thing you talk about is, you did the act the open questions, open-ended questions, and reflecting back and all these cues that we're talking about. But
Mhm,
one of
mhm,
the things that I also just learned from a death doula too, by the way,
mhm,
um, and this goes for everything, not just for people at the end of their life, but especially, is, and it's something really, it's a hard lesson, I think. I think especially for women, and as soon as I heard that, I went, oh my gosh, I do this all the time.
Mm,
And it's out of caring, but
hmm
it sucks. Is to resist the urge to fix things for people until they ask you, do you have advice? I want to give
mm,
everyone advice and say, oh yes, I've been there, done that, and this is how to do it.
hmm
And
hmm
who the heck am I to say,
hmm hmm
you know what I mean? That to resist the urge to fix everything.
Yeah.
Um, and it comes from a place of caring, but it can also come off looking like, I know it all. And I don't mean it that way, but it can come off that way, I think.
hmm Sometimes I find, and I hope we can use this word, sometimes when people are spiritually oriented, they will sometimes make spiritual asshole remarks when somebody is in a dire state and they feel destitute or whatever. The last thing you want to hear, oh, it's meant to be, or something of, like you're saying, fixing the feeling. And what we teach caregivers when they're going to be around people who are dying, and this applies to all of us while we're living, and that is to hold the space for someone to just be where they are. We don't need to rob them. Like when we go to fix it, it's almost robbing them of the experience that they're actually having,
Mm.
and we want to take it away from them because we're uncomfortable. We think they're uncomfortable, but we're uncomfortable with them in the state that they're in. So sometimes if somebody's in a state and we want to fix it, we feel like we know how to fix it because we're uncomfortable with where they are, instead of just
Mm.
allowing them. In fact, it's interesting because one of the techniques that we teach people is not to go when someone's crying, even another family member or something, not to go over and console, not to go over and put your hand on them and console them or hug them, because you take them out of their experience. And people need to have the experiences they have without interference from us who think we know, just like you said, who think we know better of how to either get out of it or that it's not okay to have it in the first place.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
there's a
And then
judgment.
that's how we start teaching to um, smother emotions.
Right.
And that's
Right.
not healthy. The thing about resisting the urge to fix. So this is so funny because I thought of you. A friend um, got divorced, but her and her ex-husband are the best of friends and
Mm-hmm.
get along better being divorced. And they have a massive property, and he lives on one end and she lives on the other. So the animals are friends, so everything is good until he comes over and says, you know what you should to bring your favorite
Mm,
word in, do. And then she has
mm,
to remind him it's time for you to go back to your corner of the
mm,
property and
mhm,
stay away for a few days.
mhm,
Um, because I think the thing about fixing is when we start using that favorite word of yours, and I'm saying that
mhm,
incredibly sarcastically, everyone, is
mhm,
Shelley's, does not like the word should.
mhm,
And the fixing thing starts with that.
mm,
That's where I say you may mean something to be very helpful, but you're starting to do the shouldas.
mhm, mhm.
It's
Yeah,
not
because
nice.
it's a judgment. Should is a judgment word, a blame word, whether we're blaming ourselves or somebody else, or whether we impose our own view on someone else's life. You should be this way. You should do it like this. You should. And it's a scolding word. It's a pointing, it goes to the disease I call finger pointingitis, when you point the finger out and blame somebody for how they are and who they are and what they think and everything else. So it's important to know that just holding the space and being present with somebody is enough.
Mm,
Sometimes we come from not feeling enough, so we have to overcompensate, or we overcompensate by wanting to go in and fix it because we think something's wrong, or we get disappointed. Disappointed comes from judgment. It comes
Mm.
from an expectation that we want something to be a certain way, or we want somebody to be a certain way. And if they're not that way, then they're missing the mark according to our own roles. And we make
And who do we
those
think
up.
we are?
Right. Exactly.
And yeah, when the shoulda thing happens, then you just want to tell people to go shit on themselves. Shit on themselves. I'm kidding.
Exactly.
I'm getting
Exactly.
poked at from behind here because I shouldn't have said it that way, but you know what I mean. It's like,
Right.
it's well, this is a good
Exactly.
conversation.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. No. I think and listening is it is a gift in what you're saying too, because you're giving time and you're giving um, support by just being there. And, I think that is valuable. Now, there are people who will call on a daily basis who have 20,000 traumatic things that have happened and that's nonstop. You are allowed to kind of not choose to listen or not, right? We do
Mhm.
have that we're allowed to listen to our bodies. Some people you're just like, okay, how am I going to get through this? And if your body just curls up every time that person calls and it's going to be a big whiny
Mhm.
session,
Mhm.
like, so we got to listen to ourselves on that. And, some people I just go, okay, that's it. Give me the whole bottle of wine to get through this. Then it's not a good thing because you shouldn't be
Mhm.
drinking a bottle of wine out of,
You what? You
uh,
what?
yeah, numbing myself.
No, what was that word? What was that word? You what?
Oh, you shouldn't. I did it.
See?
I said
We
it.
do it, we do it automatically. We just do it so automatically.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. It's embedded in our everyday, every moment
Dang
language.
it, man.
It's
I
amazing.
think we're going to have to put a shoulda jar like on this
There you
show.
go. Then put $1 in the shoulda jar. That's a really
Yeah.
good idea. God,
What's
look
we
at how
get to
much
buy
money
with it
we'd
at the
make.
end? Yeah. What would we get to buy with that? Huh.
Yeah,
You
something
never
fun.
know.
Definitely not something you should buy.
We might do it so well that we'll actually be able to afford a carton of eggs.
There you go.
Oh
Right. In
boy.
today's day, that's a good one.
Yeah, no, but yeah, going back, we've got to listen to our dialogue, don't you think, in some way to also protect us from those who have been turned energy vampires.
Mm,
So the
yes.
listening thing is
Yes.
a gift, and I think that has to be put out there in big because it's taken for granted and used at times. And we, as the listener, don't we have a duty unto ourselves that if your body and your soul like cringes each time, then you got to listen to that.
So
You
you
see,
either,
I got the ganas now. See?
right, the gunnas instead of the shouldas.
Yeah,
It still sounds softer though. Um,
yeah.
the thing is, when we don't listen to our inner wisdom and we do anything out of guilt or obligation, it usually does not turn out too well. And because we're not honoring what we truly want to do or feel that our soul wants to do. If we're talking to that person and we're just ho-humming all the way and looking in the, rolling our eyes without them seeing us, what's the point? It's a waste of both people's time and energy because you're spending time with somebody you don't really want to spend time with. You don't really want to be there. You don't really want to listen. And people, I think, can sense that. And some people don't. Narcissists
Hmm.
certainly don't care. They'll just keep talking. They don't care if they don't even are aware if you're listening or not. They just see a body or know that there's a body on the other end of the line or, in front of them, and they'll just keep talking without being aware of anything the other person has to say. And sometimes narcissists, they don't really even care what you have to say and they don't want to listen. They just want to talk.
Yeah, we call those hijackers.
Okay.
And no, it's true. They
Yeah.
hijack your time or energy vampires. Um, yeah, it's an interesting thing because in the world of podcasting,
Mm-hmm.
podcaster, they're like, oh, you've got the gift of the gab. No, it's a gift of listening. And,
Mm.
that's the gift. And there's some guests on shows that they're just not allowed back on because they hijack and it's like me, not a conversation. This. And I'm like, why don't you just go set up a computer, put a microphone there and go do your own show? Like,
Mm-hmm.
do it
Mm-hmm.
because it is, it's draining when someone like bulldozes a
It is.
conversation too. It's just
Mhm.
draining. I'm like, you're not even giving my brain a breath to catch up with what you're saying.
Mhm. I find it
So,
interesting that we're both on audio today because the whole key here is really listening. So we're listening to each other. I can't see your body language. I don't know when you're really done. You don't know when I'm really done unless I pause and stop. And and so we're really listening to what each other's saying because A, we're aware of listening. That's a big one right there. It's just to be aware of listening. And when we're aware of listening, then we can listen even more. It's like our ears, well, you know how dogs lift their ears up so they can hear better, right? Or they sense something
hmm
a mile away or whatever, and they can hear it. That's one of their superpowers is hearing. And so that's
yeah,
probably why people talk to dogs all the time because they're such good listeners.
they are. They like podcasts too. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
I always laugh at one dog that we took care of, Sweet Sarah. She's passed on now, and she's elder, and she was partly deaf, but she could listen, and partly blind, and she would sit at my feet in her bed and listen to podcasts, and she would know if I wasn't happy with what was going on or the person on the other end of the podcast or something. If anything made me uncomfortable, I
Mhm.
didn't say or do anything. She just would sit up, look at me, and groan,
Mhm.
roll her eyes, and go back to bed, and like let me know, like, no, you're right. You're on the right track. It's okay.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I'm like, how did you know? Because I've got a headset on, you're not hearing the other person. But she knew. And I
Mhm.
almost feel like she could hear things that, even if she's partially deaf, that she could hear, you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm. Mhm.
It's interesting about
Yeah.
dogs are fascinating with
Well,
that. But
yeah,
yeah, we've
they
got a
have an
lot to
inner
learn from them.
sense. They have an inner
Hmm
sense more than even hearing. They can sense, they sense it. The hearing
hmm
is like a radar system where they can really hear that. I mean, they hear high-pitched tones that we don't even hear, right? They hear things that we don't hear. And they can call our attention to things that we don't hear.
Mm.
So, but then they have a sense around it, like they'll come to you when they hear something or they'll bark or something to let you know something's going on, which is beautiful.
And it's good to listen to them because
Yeah.
and let them feel like they did something. They're
Hmm.
letting you know. They're like, hey, the postman's coming. You need to know.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's like, and if you're not paying attention, I'm going to get louder. I'm
Uh-huh.
going to let you
Uh-huh.
know. And that's the other thing is if someone is not being heard, that's where misery can turn into anger
Hmm.
and frustration and raised voices that don't you oh if I raise my voice it's pretty loud and I don't think it's any clearer if you raise your voice, you know.
Right, but we think it's more powerful for some reason. We think we can get the point across when we're yelling something,
hmm
especially when someone's not listening or hearing. They're shut down. And so how do you penetrate? How do you get through to them without raising your voice? So we got to find ways or have agreements with each other. You know, to me, when you establish a relationship with someone, when we have agreements, certain kinds of agreements that I want to hold the space for you to be who you are and say what you want to say without judgment, so you feel safe to be able to share yourself with me. I want you to feel safe. I want to be a safe harbor for you so that you can feel and be yourself without altering, without editing, without censoring, and just share what it is that you have to share in the moment from one human being to another. And I find when we equalize the playing field by looking at each other from one human being to another and not from a role, not from a
Mm.
podcaster to podcastee or an
Mm-hmm.
employer to employee or boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, any of those roles, the roles get in the way of actually hearing and listening to the other person as a human being that has all the same things we do, all the same
Mm.
emotions, all the same reactions and responses and judgments. And, why don't we set it up in a healthier way to establish relationships that say, look, I'm human, you're human. We all do these things. We all have emotions. And you know what? Right now, it's so interesting. I'm feeling really judgy. I'm feeling judgy, and I want to blame you for this and that for how I feel. I want to blame you. And why can't we just say that? And you go, wow, that's interesting. And then have the other person go, huh, what do you think that's about? Instead of taking it personally and then getting mad at the person for judging you.
So you're
It's
giving it
a
you're
voice.
looking at facts, actually. You're going, this is what's happening. And instead of the other word comes out,
Yeah, right,
the
right,
egg carton comes out. Um,
right.
see, good catch here now.
Very good.
Um, but it is, yeah, because if you just, it's like documenting, this is a fact, this is what we see. It's the same thing as being in traffic. It's like, okay, we could sit there and swear all we want and get riled up and, get our heartbeat thumping and be all
Yeah,
angry and cranky. You could have had the best day and then there's a traffic jam, right? And you
yeah.
need to get somewhere. Or you could go, yeah, there's a traffic jam. I'm going to be late. What am I going to do about that? Not really much I can do about it when
Right.
because things go wonky all the time. And you can't control the universe. You just can't. And it's
Mhm.
just, you just have to look at it and go, well, look at that. And then you make a plan if you can, or you sit through it.
Mhm.
It
Right.
just without, I mean, I think anger is an important thing. Anger and all of that is important, but it's a warning system, I think.
Right.
Anger.
When we make anger and pride more important than love, see, it goes
Mm,
back to what we value in life. And there are some people who value anger more than they do love. And I mean, I won't mention names, but I was in a relationship with a man, and he was angry all the time and always would yell and fly off the handle and think that his anger was his power, like it was powerful and forceful. And I asked him one day, what would happen if you let go of your anger? And he said, I would lose my identity.
ew.
Yes. Now, when someone's so wrapped up that anger and pride is more important than love, there's nowhere to go with that because the outcome is going to be the same. So you want to find people that you're compatible with in values. What do you value? What and
Mm,
how important is that value to you? You know, I've done exercises, which is fabulous, to list the values that you hold high in high esteem. And you could have 40 values. What are your top 10? What's your
mm,
top five? What's your top one? Is it love? Is it money? Some people's value is money. Some people's value success. That's what they value. That's how they value themselves. If they're successful, then they become a
mhm,
successful human being. And no matter how they get there. So
mm,
it's really what we value. How do we value each other? How do we set up agreements that I'm going to hold this space for you to be human and have whatever experiences, human experiences that you have without judging you and condemning you and making you wrong for having them in the first place, which we all have.
mm.
That's why it's so important when we look at each other from one human being to another, we equalize the playing field. and we become equal entities of nobody's better or worse or, superior or inferior.
Mm.
But
I
sometimes
like that.
in that game too.
No, I like that. I like that a lot. I like also how you close off your article saying, imagine if we all listened as if it was the last conversation we'd ever have with that person. Like
Yes.
that just brings it on home, sister.
And I actually tell that to couples who are arguing and who are in a fight. And I say, if this was your last breath, or if this was her last breath, is this the way you want to go out? Is this the last conversation you want to have?
Mm,
And it kind of sobers
that's,
them up.
yeah,
Wow, I think I better do something about our communication because this is not the way I want to go out.
exactly. And the other part is, when people are passing, that sticks with you forever. If you were mean right before they passed on, like
Mm-hmm.
that will sit with you. And you're going to have to go to therapy or something. You
Mm-hmm.
might, to get past that because that's a hard thing. I think they always say, with couples, don't go to bed angry. I think there's something to that because you don't know. You could fall asleep, a forever sleep in the middle of
Yes,
the night, you know,
absolutely. That's
and
right.
there's no point of, you can't, we all need our sleep, man.
Yeah.
We need that.
Yeah.
No, but I think that is such a strong, strong close of like how to take that on. Like, really, is that really what you wanted to say before they drop dead,
Exactly. So think of that when you're in a heated moment and whatever, and you want to, you know, call each other names. I mean, that's the hard part too, is call each other names. And it just puts people in a box and then they can't get out of the box. And it puts ourselves in a box that we can't get ourselves out of. And, as growing up, you've heard the statement, be seen and not heard. Well, we've heard that
Mhm.
so much that we grow up thinking that we don't matter, that what we have to say is not important, that it's not valued. And so being heard is like being loved.
Mhm.
And
It,
that's,
it's really true.
yeah,
Because if you're not heard, look at a couple. If you're not heard, eventually someone's going to leave, you
yeah,
know, or they're just going to die a really horrible time. Not being heard is horrible. Um,
horrible.
it is horrible. And the other trick too, like Nancy and I've learned is, hey, we can't talk right now, but let's talk at this point. So I
Hmm.
can hear you. That's the other thing is if you want to help someone and hear them, make
Hmm.
sure you can do it. Don't try to, because I'm really guilty of that. I'll like start to listen and not listen partway through because I'm doing something else.
Hmm.
It's better to go, okay, give me 5 minutes. Now I can listen or whatever it is.
Right. Right. Because you
That's
want
a,
to listen.
mhm.
You want to hear what the person has to say. You're interested in what they have to say. And we don't do enough of letting people know that we genuinely care about what somebody else has to say. We don't let them really know that. I think we take
Exactly.
that for
Yeah.
granted.
And if you do have to wait to be heard, don't forget what you were going to talk about.
Write it down right. No, that's a good one.
That
That's a
happens. I'm just
real good
saying.
one. Yeah.
That's a
Hmm.
Nancy and Lisa thing right there. Okay, I'll give you
Yeah.
5 minutes. Just give me 5 minutes. And then one of us will say that. We'll go to do it. And then we're like, what are you
What?
talking about? Who
Oh,
said what? Who said
I
what?
know exactly.
I know. It's like, hey, remind me to tell you about this. Okay.
Yeah,
What?
but remind me what I was talking about.
Yeah. Take the trash out. That's all I had to say. No. No, it's
Funny.
funny listening again. So powerful, Shelley. Always good having you on the podcast, and
Thank
it's
you.
it's a great way to kick off a new month, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, march in, march in, march
Yeah,
out.
that's it. March into listening and march right out if you don't like it.
So funny.
Oh, man. Well, everyone, again, Shelley's article is linked in the episode notes. You can also go right to her website, shelleywizen.com. She's got all kinds of cool resources on there. She's got her books as well, and always has some kind of program up her sleeve. And so watch out for that. And she shares that on social media as well. So always fun, Shelley.
Thank you. You too, Lisa.
Take care.
I will. You too. Take care. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio's Soul Diving Sunday show featuring transformational life coach Shelley Whizin. Follow Shelley at ShelleyWhizin.com. Follow us at BigBlendRadio.com.